Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Finance and Safety Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Lallam and a second by Y. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is public input. Is there anyone here who would like to make a statement? See none, I'll move on. Item 3 is approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Manti and a second by Helene. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is council consideration of a joint funding agreement with the United States Geological Survey, USGS, for the operation and maintenance of gauging stations for the Upper Big Sioux River flood forecasting system in the amount of $23,670. Motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Lallam and a second, someone down here, Rademski. And I would like Heath to explain this, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council, welcome back from the holiday weekend. It's great to see a full dais up here now with Mr. Hoyer joining us for the first time in person. This item before you this evening is related to the river gauges that are part of the flood forecasting system along the Big Sioux River. The USGS has a system of river gauges that span quite a length of the river from way up north of us and continues on through to the south of the city. And this is an annual agreement that is renewed around this time of year annually, and it runs from October through September of the following year. Coincidentally, I'm just also processing the pay application for this year's services, which are just a few $100s less than what the proposed 2020 services are. This amount is $23,670. In a nutshell, this agreement is for 7 of the 12 gauging stations. The other 5 of those 12 are covered by cost-share partners. Those cost-share partners include the USGS themselves, Coddington County, Lake Kempesca Water Project District, and the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The funding for this project has been budgeted through the general fund under the Water Resources Department account, and we have a line item in there in the amount of $27,000 that covers this expense that we budget for annually. I believe the 2020 amount that we included in the budget was the same, $27,000. So staff recommends approval of this agreement, and I'd be glad to help answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is council consideration of change order number 3 final with Farner Asphalt Sealers for the crack sealing project number 1816 for a decrease of $15,317.80.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
You had a motion by Lallam and a second by Helene. Would you explain, Heath?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. The work, this is for, to note here, this is for 2018's crack sealing project, last year's crack sealing. It was not completed at the end of last year due to several factors, some including weather, some due with contractor schedules. It was agreed upon by city staff and the contractor at the end of last year to move the substantial completion date on to earlier 2019. This change order is a simple final change order reflecting the actual quantities that were installed and brings the total cost in less than budgeted to the tune of $15,317.80. And I'd be glad to help answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Councilman Vilhauer?
Mayor, Heath, not a question about this, but what's the status of our downtown chip seal? I mean, that we had redone here a few weeks ago that had some issues, and where are we at? I mean, is it as good as it's going to get, or does it need to be cleaned up yet, or where are we at with that?
Yes, Councilman Vilhauer, we have been in discussions with that contractor, and which is separate from this one. But they and we agreed to monitor the situation to see how the chip seal performs. It obviously hit some less than ideal circumstances and conditions during the installation. A good majority of that we feel weren't, the quality was not compromised. We've talked also with LTAP, the Local Transportation Assistance Program based out of SDSU, and gathered some thoughts from them in relation to chip seals and some of the problems that we ran into with this installation. So they're a valuable source to consult with as well. As far as the immediate response for the time being, though, is we're kind of in a waiting period to see how it performs, how much chip we continue to lose here before the winter months set in. I don't foresee necessarily doing any additional work to it yet this construction season. If we do notice that it continues to be compromised throughout early next year, we'll approach those discussions with the contractor again at that point and proceed with the appropriate remedies at that point as well.
Councilman Roby?
Is there a limit of time we have to go back and say we have issues with this, or a year warranty, or how does that work?
That's a good question, Councilman Roby. In our current contracts, what I'm accustomed to saying is a year warranty on all capital improvement projects. I don't believe our contracts stipulate that on our capital construction projects. They do stipulate that on our development work and our development projects that the private development constructs. I would like to incorporate some warranty language in our capital projects. I don't believe we have that in the contract language, and that's something that would be a policy decision that the council would have to be on board with before I started administrating it. However, the contractor in this case full well knows that this is a warranty issue, it's a performance issue, and they're standing behind their work. So that's a good thing for us, that they're willing to work with us. As far as it's a technical warranty, that they're bound by legal contract terms, I'm not confident that that's the case, but I'd like to make that the case on future projects. So we'll continue to work with the contractor and get their feedback. You know, one of the remedies may be too, if this continues to be what we would consider a compromised application or install, one of the remedies would also be monetarily. If they were to perform additional work on other streets throughout town because we don't feel that it would be an impact to this one to not redo it, we could get monetary compensation towards other work throughout town as well. And that's another remedy that's on the table.
Thank you. Could we go back to the crack ceiling? There's a decrease. Did we eliminate some areas that we were planning to crack seal, or did we just overestimate the quantity?
Yes, my understanding from this, and unfortunately neither Colin or Rob are here right now to speak in more detail, but my understanding of it was a timing issue with the contractor. They committed to come back to finish out all of last year's scope of work, plus a great percentage of what we added to that contract, but couldn't quite get it all done before they had to leave town to do other work commitments. So the amount that they had left remaining wasn't, we felt, compromising what we needed done. We got a great majority of what we needed done wrapped up, and we were confident and comfortable moving forward with this reduction in this change order.
Okay, for 2000, this was the 2018
Correct.
project. In 2019, did we have a separate project with a different contractor?
We do. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So completely independent.
So we'll be picking up essentially where this contract left off as far as the needs go,
Right.
and where we want to
Yep.
be having crack sealed.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Those will both be on, both those items will be on the consent agenda, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. All right. Is there any old business?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Vilhauer?
I've asked, I think it's been about a month now, Heath, anything new on the 21st Street bike path? Anything from the FAA in the meantime, or are we still just on a holding pattern there?
I could say that we're still on a holding pattern. The airport manager has been in communications with the FAA through our consultant, Helms Associates. And we haven't got a definitive answer back from them on what they would be agreeable to as far as how that airport plat was concerned. That's really the biggest holdup is them signing off on that plat so that we obtain the additional right-of-way to move that pathway out further away from the road and out of that ditch line that it's currently in. And until we get that check off on that additional right-of-way, we really aren't comfortable, unfortunately, putting that pathway where it needs to go up out of that ditch.
So it's probably a safe assumption that it's not going to happen anymore this fall by now?
Unfortunately, that's the direction it's leaning in, but we're still going to continue to press and find out what we can within this construction season.
Thank you. Mayor, if I might.
Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I wonder if it would benefit us to have you contact the FAA and see if, with the mayor calling them and asking, because this has lingered on for over a year probably, maybe more than a year now. And my understanding, it's all positioning up to the fence. That's all they got to determine is where they want to put it in relation to where the fence is. Obviously moving it up, but that might want to consider doing that.
Are we almost done with the plat? Because I think that was part of the FAA's, is that plat recorded?
Yes, my understanding, and Todd could speak more in detail with this as well, but I apologize him not being here, but the issues with the plat in relation to the FAA's concerns are the amount of property, airport property, they look at as though we're giving it away. We are taking a good amount of acres or square footage of what's considered airport property and now dedicating it as public right-of-way. So in their minds, we're losing a lot of good, valuable airport property that the FAA never likes to see, an airport doing, unless it goes through the proper channels and protocol to do that, which becomes a very extensive process. And so we were trying to get creative with that plat and how that is portrayed in a way and communicating with the FAA that they would find amicable to them and not see it as airport property giveaway. And we've talked about platting it as H lots, and we've talked about using easements, and we've talked about the right-of-way option, and that's where this discussion has gotten kind of extensive with the FAA and getting it through the proper protocol with each one of those options as we presented them. So in a nutshell, that's where things are at with them from their standpoint. And again, I think having the right people in on the phone call, we could probably get somewhere more definitive with them, hopefully soon, and make sure that the proper steps are being followed.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Just one other thought too, Mayor.
Sure.
Maybe we might want to get somebody from our congressional delegation to look at that too. If we can't move it off center with your conversation with them. So.
Okay. All righty. Any other old business? Councilman Hoyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more question with it, and then I'll let it go. So with the chip seal, just because I walk it every day, I'm just wondering, and I don't know if it's just the process of chip seal that you have to just leave it alone and let people drive on it to compress it more, but at the very least, could we potentially do a sweep of just the curb, essentially? Because right now there's still a lot of just loose gravel on the edges. I think that would at least show some good faith to some of the folks down there that aren't so happy with it, that we're at least willing to do a little bit for them. And that's a question for you, Heath. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. That is part of the process where we, the street department, continually puts forth those street sweeping efforts and tries to pick up all the loose chips, not only from the surface of the roadway, but from the gutter pan and those areas as well. And so that's definitely something that they'll continue to do and perform. And that's part of the assessment of how this chip seal continues to perform itself. The amount of chips that we continue to pick up through our sweeping efforts is documented. So if it seems excessive and quantified to be excessive, we know that it's another failed attempt at applying that chip seal.
Well, and next weekend is the Vintiques, and they generally sweep prior to that, so it's probably already on the schedule, but if you'll double check with street superintendent, just to make sure. Councilman Rademski?
Now, with this company and this chip seal issue, next year if they bid, the same type of work, do we take into consideration their past history with issues when we award a bid out?
Yes, Councilman, we do. Anytime a bid is awarded, you want to take into account past performance. I wouldn't necessarily quantify the issues we've had on this contract as a black mark per se against this contractor. Some of it's the initial issue that caused it to be rechipped. They haven't specifically pinpointed that, but they think it may be oil related, which is a supplier to this contractor. But for the most part, the work that they performed throughout the community in years past, and the rest of the areas in town for that matter on last year's project, did in fact perform very well. And the fact that they're very responsive to these warranty issues lends one to believe that they're a good, viable contractor to continue working with. So I wouldn't necessarily put them on a blacklist per se yet at this point, but it is definitely something that we would keep in mind and continue to monitor and track and document as we move forward with working relationships with them.
Thank you. Anything else? Is there any new business? All right, don't see any. We will have an executive session in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on personnel matters, economic development, and security issues. And we will not be taking any action coming out. So I would like a motion to go into executive session. Have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Bueller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.